Mississippi. Morning, my friends. How are you? Hob Bryan is with us, District 7, Chairman, Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee in the House. From where? Amory, Mississippi, or nearby. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Well, first of all, I'm in the Senate.
Well, did I say the House? I'm sorry, Senate. Did I say the House?
You said I was in the House.
No, I'm talking about in the House, meaning that you are in the studio.
Yes, we've been talking about that because you're not in the studio.
I am in a studio. You want to start this off this way now, this morning?
No, I was just going to tell you what's going on. So I think you ought to be live.
You've already confounded the producer who says he's not sure if you're not drinking or this morning.
You'd be nice to the producer because we've been talking.
Yes.
I realized that I'm in the studio, but you're only on the air because there's a switch here. And if he would just flip the switch, then
that goes for most of our guys. We all live and die by the switch.
But then it would be just me. And so
that's a scary thought.
I've come with a C note, and I've offered 100. And what I wanted to do was to read out a phone number here directly to the studio, so listeners could call in and make pledges and see if we could come up with enough money to persuade him to flip the switch.
I think you want public radio for that. So
it didn't work. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you.
Good to see you.
I haven't seen you in a while. It's really good to be back.
Well, this is kind of
I'm not going to get him to flip the switch. I'm going to see if they won't let you stay on.
This is kind of a weird day for me because I got two Democrats on at the same time, and I'll have to have therapy for this. But it's the end of the session, and the tomato slips are around the corner. I said this the other day, and somebody on C-Spire or somewhere texted me and said, well, what the hell is this about tomato slips? And I'm thinking, okay, they're not in the boomer generation, but would you explain the tomato slips?
Well, I'm not sure about the slips, but we used to get tomato plants.
We called them tomato slips on the farm.
Well, we used to never really know for sure when we were going home.
Mm-hmm.
We knew it was close, but we didn't know if we were going to stay an extra day or what. But when we showed up and there were 6 little tomato plants on our desk, we knew we were going home that day. And we were always very anxious to see the little tomato plants, which came from Mississippi State, of course.
This is going to be one of those things that I've been indoctrinated with from the Delta for some odd reason. I just thought about it. Apparently, everybody doesn't call them slips when they're those small plants. And it must be something from the Delta that I've picked up and I can't kick. So I do apologize for that because people are probably wondering where does the slips come in to that. All right, let's talk about something serious here. I've been tracking this $27.99. I called it a Trojan Horse. I don't like it. I don't understand it. I've had your colleague on, Daniel Sparks, to explain it to me. When he explains it to me, I like it even worse. I don't even know if it's constitutional. Basically, what it says is, in a way, moving the governor's office more to a cabinet form of government than he is already, and I think it makes the governor's office more powerful for a future governor, being Democrat or Republican. But what it does is basically says what we're going to do is redo the entire boards and also the agency heads. Not all of them. I think there are 2 or 3 exceptions. But every 4 years, you guys are fired for the most part. You're automatically fired. We're going to either reappoint you or put our own people in there. I see some, and the other parts of that bill need to be done, and I think are good ideas. The parts that say, if you have an opening, you need to address that opening and not leave it open for a long time. And there's some other things, too. If you're not attending the meeting, then replace that board member with somebody else. All of those things I have no problem. The problem is the way it's staggered is the new governor comes in, and he's got the vast majority. In a 6-member board, he's got 4 of them that he automatically puts in. Am I missing something in here?
No, I think you pretty much got it. I think you did a good summary, and I pretty much agree with what you said.
Well, don't leave it there.
Can I go now?
Yes, you can go now. So I set the stage for you.
I thought you'd already covered the topic. First of all, generally speaking, I do agree with you. But to back up, Senator Sparks is a good friend. He's a good state senator, and he's right to look at all of these agencies. The existing situation is a mess. The governor makes appointments to dozens of boards and commissions, and some of them, far too many, require confirmation by the state senate. Every single board is set up differently. There's a hodgepodge, there's a board that has appointments based on congressional districts the way they were in 1952. And so, the geography needs to change. We need to have some provision that is simpler, in some uniformity, not for every single board, but we need general uniformity. Mm-hmm. And so he's right about that. And Senator Sparks is right in saying that we have confirmation of too many people. There are a number of boards we just don't need to confirm people for. So I think he's right about that. I just disagree with him about several things. I think it's a good idea to have a staggered board because a new appointee to a board needs some time to get some understanding of how the board works and why the board's doing what it does. That doesn't mean the new appointee necessarily needs to agree with it. He just needs to understand it first, and that takes some while. Know the reasons that people do things, know things to watch out for. And I also think it's a mistake to have, as this bill does, so many appointments that a new governor must make all at once, because it's almost always the case that whoever the governor is, even if he or she is an incumbent and has been reelected, has been pretty busy with a campaign through November, and then there is a inauguration in January. The legislature's coming in. You'd want to get ready with your legislative package. You've got an entire staff and all to put together, and dumping hundreds of appointments on the governor right at that time, I think, is just a mistake. So I would leave the staggered terms, whatever else we do. I would leave the staggered terms. I think that's much better than having a number of appointments.
I agree with you. I mean, if you just changed and put the staggered terms back to where they were, everything else is fine. So why do you think that was rearranged and reconstituted in the way it was, as far as the staggered terms?
Why do I
There's got to be a reason for that.
Why do I think Senator Sparks
did that, yeah.
I think he was interested in uniformity, and I think there's a lot to be said for uniformity, particularly for most of these agencies. I think it's fine if you want to have the same number of people on the same agencies and the same geography for the appointments. And so I think in trying for uniformity, which in that respect is a good idea, his concern for uniformity began to overtake the whole process, and we got, in my opinion, more uniformity than we need. I really am not quite sure the thought of having all those appointments at once.
Well, if you've got a 6-member board, the governor would have 4 immediately, so the board's going to be influenced by that. Whomever he's appointed as far as board members from his campaign or wherever it happens to be, and who they appoint as the agency head is going to be reflected in that. If it's an 8 or an 8-member board, it's going to be 5 or 6 of those. So he will always have the majority every 4 years.
I would just say, in general terms, I think that the governor needs more power. In general terms, I think that the governor won the election. That ought to count for something. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the governor ought to do more than just get free housing and get to veto bills and make appointments. But having said that, a governor doesn't necessarily need to control every agency the first day in office. We have boards for a reason.
Okay, we got a break coming up. Here's what's missing in my mind. I'm not too worried about the governor having more power. That's fine. I'm worried about who's going to take that job. I think Gerard Gibbert said it beautifully, and he took the example of the gaming commissioner. If you got to find somebody who has that expertise from another state, are you going to move to Mississippi, move your family here, readjust your life, come to this state, want to be a part of it? If you've got 4 years and that's it, new governor comes in, decides he wants to do it, you're not going to find somebody with that expertise who is, around the corner. It's one of those things as like the Department of Education. You've got to have a search, and some of that search has to be outside the state. We'll talk more about that coming up. Woman, I'm doing some ancestry on my own part here as far as childhood is concerned. A slip. Thank you from C Spire text line 601-879-4395. A slip. We used to call them a tomato slip, a potato slip, sweet potato slip. Have you ever heard that one, Brian? Hob?
No.
A slip is and I hear this is on Google now, so I'm not making this up. A slip is a rooted sprout from a mature sweet potato. You can order your sweet potato slips online, or you can grow your own. If you're wondering how to grow potato slips, you can begin the process 8 to 12 weeks before planting your actual sweet potato. So there you are.
One
I
can
did not
learn.
make that up.
One can learn a lot just listening to this show.
I was smarter than I thought I was. Tomato slips, potato slips.
Wait.
All right. Now, so
that's the quote of the day. Paul Gallo has determined he is smarter than he thought he was.
Well, that's a moving scale, so let's don't dwell on it. Are you concerned? Because I'm a little surprised that it's lived this long in here without an amendment to change the staggered part of that. Here's the other part of this. If politics be politics, all the way from the agency head to the boards and everything else, would that affect people who may want to get into politics? Get into public service work at the state, let's say the state government, or wherever it happens to be, and know that the agency heads are going to be changed every 4 years? Would that be detrimental to people getting into jobs in the public service sector?
We do confirm some agency heads. Again, I'm not really interested in including all the people that the bill would include. It makes more sense to confirm someone if it's a direct appointee of the governor than if it's an appointee of a board. But I'm not interested in increasing the number of confirmations. This
also makes the Senate a little more powerful because they have the confirmation duties to do that, right? Not the House, but the Senate.
Well, you're saying the bill would?
Yes.
No, I don't disagree with that.
All right, we just went over these with Robert Johnson a few moments ago, but I want your thoughts on, let me just mention them out. First of all, PERS.
Well, the problem is, for a variety of reasons, the system has a debt. That debt must be paid. And in order to pay the debt, we need revenue from some place other than assessing payroll. And that's what we've got to grapple with, and we seem very reluctant to talk about that. I think, and one of the things that's so scary about this session is it seems that over and over again something comes out of nowhere and it just passes. I mean, this proposal to completely revamp the board, to replace the PERS board with 4 appointees from the lieutenant governor and 5 appointees from the governor, was introduced, passed the House, everybody over there voted for it just about, and sent to the Senate without any debate, without anybody knowing that was going on. I just fundamentally think that's wrong. The bill that was passed doesn't do much, so it doesn't do much right or doesn't do much wrong. But the problem that we need to grapple with is basically, what are we going to do about this debt?
Well, that's addressed in the bill itself?
No.
It turns the present board into mostly an advisory board?
No.
What do you mean, no, it doesn't? Have you read the bill?
Yes.
Did you vote for it or against it?
I voted no.
It says here all that's left, the new law means the Public Employees Retirement System Board will no longer have the authority to increase the contribution rate levied on governments, both on the state and local level. If it becomes law, there would be a 2.5% increase over 5 years, a 0.5% increase in the employer contribution rate each year for 5 years, right?
That doesn't change the board into an advisory board.
Well, whatever they decide, the legislature has to act on it. Am I reading this the wrong way or what?
But Paul, you're talking about one thing with which I disagree, by the way.
I'm talking about PERS.
You're talking about one feature of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with that feature of the bill, but nevertheless, it says the decision of whether to raise money or not is moved from the board to the legislature. But the board does all sorts of things other than that. The board hires an executive director. The board employs accountants. The board makes assumptions about how much the return on investments will be, all of those things. The board is an advisory board only in the situation of increasing assessments on payroll. And I think that's a mistake, but that's what they did.
I know I'm pushing for time here. I know that you have been passionate about the Medicaid expansion. Give you a few seconds to talk about that. And according to Robert, there was some movement on that over the weekend.
We should have expanded Medicaid more than a decade ago. We should still simply expand Medicaid. That's the term they use, but we should do the same thing 40 other states are doing. Should have done it.
And that's it?
Yes.
Do you think it's going to happen as far as what you've seen over the weekend?
I'm not going to predict anything that this legislature will or will not do. I've never seen anything like it.
SB 3165 was MDOT, some additional funding. That conference report was adopted over the weekend by a vote of 52-0. It's SB 3165, so MDOT gets a little extra money.
Well,
Anything else
I
that you do?
I think the key word there is a little. We are continuing to fail to do what we must do, which is have a revenue stream dedicated to the highway department so that they can plan. And lump sums of money are fine, but what they need is a revenue stream with which to plan, which will help them draw down federal funds. I cannot imagine why we're not doing this. There are billions and billions and billions of dollars of needs to build highways. The cost is through the roof, and our failure to properly fund the highway department and give them some revenue to replace the revenue they're losing with the gasoline tax due to inflation and due to more efficient vehicles. I can't imagine.
I don't disagree with you. It's not going to come from additional taxes on gas. That's not going to happen, certainly in the environment that we're in now. So you have to go back every year and just beg for money. And we've had, all three commissioners have made their plea for this. So you're saying that it's not enough.
As did their predecessor commissioners. I mean, again, there's an analogy with PERS in that the people at PERS and the people at the highway department keep saying there's this problem. We need additional money. And even if all the other objections you have about the highways or all the other objections you have about PERS, whichever the case may be, even if you're right about all those, there's still not enough money to do what you've told us to do.
Hob, I don't know how many times Dick Hall was on with us, but I don't think he was ever on that he didn't make that passionate plea and over and over and over, and I don't think it's changed.
I agree.
Any other bills that you have that made it through that you would like to highlight here? No. Did you have any bills make it through?
The House Chair of Public Health is Chairman Sam Creekmore, who's from New Albany, although his family's from Amory. We've been working on all session, primarily in the area of mental illness, but with other things. And I think we're making progress. We have legislation that's going to continue our effort to get better treatment for people with mental illnesses and get more and more people into a therapeutic setting and away from this legal process, and certainly out of jails. And we're working on that, and we continue to do that. I could come on someday and we could talk about all that.
It's one of the horrible stories. When we had Burl Cain on, the Commissioner of Corrections, and I asked him how many people did we have incarcerated across the state that really shouldn't be there. Mental illness is way definitely that they have mental illness and they should be in some type of institution and not behind bars, because you're not going to get any better there. And you got to wonder about the conviction itself. But it's one of those stories that has been with us for a long, long time, and we really need to correct that. Hob, as always, sir.
Just quickly, there are two things going on at the same time. Number one, a number of people who are mentally ill and do need treatment actually are guilty of crimes under our law. So one of the things that is a problem that we don't talk about that much is the people who have really been convicted of crimes, and properly so under the law, but still the real problem is their mental illness.
Is the only institution we have is Whitfield?
No, we have East Mississippi, but what's important is over the past years, we've had more and more and more local facilities. We've got crisis intervention.
We thank you, sir. Appreciate